on your platform? Hey, we're live. How are you doing, John?
I'm doing great, Natasha. How are you?
Good. And I'm so happy that you were able to come on. I know we recently met at a networking event, Network
Yeah.
Live, and that was in Phoenix.
Yep. Shout out to Tab and Catherine for hosting it, and it was a pleasure meeting you there as well.
Yes, and I'm so happy that you were able to make time for me today. And I got to learn about you before we came live, and that was very special to me. So, shout out to the apology expert, John. He is your go to guy for everything apology, everything entrepreneurial, that things that he's been through that he can share with you so that you can also grow. So today he's on my show, Inspiring Innovators, and we cover 7 categories of overall wellness: emotional, financial, physical, spiritual, environmental, social, and fun. So let's get on to our new topic. Today, this is his first topic: function of the apologies. So before I get to there, I want to know, how did your journey start in this business?
Yeah, I think so my journey started on two different fronts, right? On the personal side, I came into this because I grew up not really knowing how to apologize. I didn't really say it very well, and it
Mhm.
was like drastically affecting my own relationships. So when I learned to get into accountability, I saw that it really changed the way people perceive me in my relationships,
Mhm.
and I realized like this is accountability is powerful, especially to be able to verbalize that accountability is extremely powerful.
Mhm.
Then, on the professional side, my background's in the law. I'm a
Mhm.
graduate of Lewis and Clark Law School in Portland, Oregon. I graduated
Congrats,
2019.
congrats.
Thank you, thank you. And with my law degree, I think about my problems in a very different way.
Mhm.
I think about problems in as puzzles to be solved,
Mhm.
right? I think of big problems as things to be broken down into
Mhm.
numerous smaller solvable puzzles until you are able to go from A to B, which is, puzzle to solve. And
Mhm.
so I started putting that same approach into my apologies, my accountability, and I
Yeah,
realized that there's a technical way of approaching apologies that could really help people maximize their chances to earn forgiveness.
of course. Of course. Great. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. I mean, sometimes we are afraid to hurt people's feelings because we
Hmm.
feel some type of way, but we don't know how to express it. And
Absolutely.
a lot of things get lost in the sauce, essentially, when you're texting or when you're emailing, if you don't know how to say it effectively. And
Yeah.
it's hard. And as a South Asian woman and the upbringing that we have, we're taught to be nice to our elders and be nice to
Hmm.
our neighbors, and we talk about karma, we talk about all these things, right, to keep it positive and fun, but and not negative. But we all go through different challenges in our business, in our lives, in our friendships, that change the motivation or trajectory of our feelings, right? But if
Yeah.
we've not done the work of inner work and said to ourselves, can I put myself in these people's shoes? And if you can, that's when the apology sounds authentic and comes from a place of, I forgive myself. Now let me forgive that person, or let me work to solve the problem that is at hand. So,
Yep.
can you tell me the function of the apology, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, the function of apology is something really important to consider when apologizing, right? Because a lot of people, when it comes to having to apologize, they don't really think about like, why am I doing this? Or
Mhm,
more importantly, what purpose is this action that I'm taking serve me? How does it serve me to actually do what I'm doing, right?
mhm.
So the function of an apology is to earn forgiveness from
Correct.
another person. And
Yeah.
it's important to focus on the goal, because if you don't have a goal in mind, you don't think about like why I'm doing what I'm doing, you
Mhm.
don't necessarily build the right bridge to get to that goal. So I always teach folks in my class, the most important thing, the first lesson is the reason you apologize is because you want forgiveness.
Mhm, mhm.
Hmm.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to clear the air, because sometimes you think things in your mind and like this is going to happen or that's going to happen and you worry, and that worry starts to build because it eats you up inside, and then you start worrying and crying and getting upset over other things because you're it's coming out into other ways, right? It's manifesting more worry. And I think that when you apologize and when you make that your goal to do, you have to come from a place of I don't know, like they I don't know the word, but basically a place where you're ready to do it. You don't have
Yeah.
to respond right away. Responding right away causes more miscommunication, right? Because maybe you don't feel
Mhm.
things, or maybe you feel it in that moment. So, given that, what would you do in terms of a crisis where you've now communicated wrongly and now you have to fix it? So, what do you do as a business owner, or even as a friend or a family member? What do you do in those instances?
Yeah, well, first you got to clarify your goal, right? Which again is to earn forgiveness. Then the next big thing is like, what are the tools I can use in a crisis to get my message across,
Mhm.
right? Because it's not important that you feel bad. It's important that you are thinking, that your solutions oriented and you're thinking, and that you're able to verbalize not just those solutions to the other person, but you also verbalize your remorse and your guilt, to get them on the same page as you.
Sure.
So in a crisis in a relationship, the communication that you need needs to be intentional. I'd say is the most important thing, right? You need to be very intentional about the way you communicate. So this could be anything, such as the physical aspect of intentionality, your tone of voice, your body language,
Mhm.
and then there could be like the technical, like communication
Mhm.
style, right? Your word choice, or maybe environmental, the
Mhm.
setting
Mhm.
where you're communicating.
Mhm.
And but the most important thing is like the nature of the apology itself, the substance, right?
Mhm.
The substance is like what you're truly apologizing for, but you're communicating in such a way that you're trying to be as persuasive as possible to
Correct.
get the other person to understand that, like, hey, like I truly understand like what I
Mhm.
did wrong, and I truly
Yeah.
am sorry, and I
Yeah.
really want to move forward. There are definitely ways where you could bomb an apology, but there are also ways very you could put yourself in the best position to maximize, the outcome. And
Yes.
so being intentional in all respects, all strategies moving forward, uh,
Mhm.
is crucial when you're having a crisis. When you're
Yes.
having a crisis, right, you need to remember that no one's perfect during
Mhm.
that time.
Of course.
You're probably going to be very emotional yourself.
Mhm.
You're probably going to be freaking out. You're probably not going to be thinking very clearly. Uh,
Mhm.
you're going to feel more rushed than
Mhm.
you feel like you have enough time to
Of
like
course.
actually sit back and strategize. And I
Mhm.
would say like it's almost counterintuitive, but you have to refrain from those emotions of crisis. You
Mhm.
have to refrain from freaking out. You have to refrain from feeling sad, throwing a pity party. You got
Mhm.
to focus on what is important,
Mhm.
which is the outcome and
Mhm.
the other person.
And the
So also,
relationships and the
go ahead.
relationships that you build matter.
Absolutely,
And the trust and the
absolutely.
honesty and integrity goes into play with everybody that you meet in your life. And the people who value you, the people who respect you, will be open to say, hey, let's sit down face to face, or let's talk on the phone. Let's hash this out because our relationship is more important than
Mhm.
this issue, right? But it depends
Absolutely.
on how much they value you, because a person who values you will think about what they say before they react. We're all
Mhm.
guilty of that. We've all been there where we've been in a situation where we were not proud of what we said or what was done. But it's the timing sometimes. It's the moment sometimes, and you're just in that flight or fight response. And
Hmm.
we've all been there. I'm sure you've had to deal with crises yourself.
Absolutely.
It happens in your business, in your life, in school, when we were kids, in the sandbox. Like, it happens. Oh, you took my toy. Why did you take my toy? We've all been through situations of crisis, whether we've known it or not, or felt it or not. But when you're not working on yourself, it's going to affect other aspects of your life. Um,
Hmm.
the next topic will kind of leeway into this. So now you've been in a conflict. Now you're trying to solve a problem. You've got the function of the apology, but the person is not ready to receive it. So, how do you negotiate in that moment your feelings, or just in general? Like, what would be the skills to negotiate with that person?
I think one of the biggest skills that you really have to develop when you're apologizing, or even when you're going for like a traditional negotiation, right, is you need to exercise the muscle of coming in good faith,
Hmm.
right? Which means you're coming to the table, hands open,
Hmm.
and you are able to communicate candidly, and you're able to put your ego aside,
Correct.
right? So coming in good faith means that you are willing to discuss, topics that might not necessarily be comfortable to you.
Hmm.
You're ready to discuss, the things that you've done wrong that make you feel bad as a
Hmm.
person, that make you feel remorseful.
Hmm.
You're ready to give them the information that they need.
Correct.
You're ready to create a space for them to be upset at you. These are all showings of good faith that, you're creating a space for someone to communicate
Hmm.
um, towards you in probably some of the most uncomfortable conversations that you will experience
Hmm.
in that type of relationship.
Hmm.
But by giving them that space and by being able to openly talk about these things, you're really showing them like, hey, I'm putting you above me. I'm putting the relationship above me.
Hmm.
Um, I'm I'm obviously going to be very uncomfortable,
Hmm.
with letting you tell me like what kind of a terrible person I was or like how terrible that my actions were.
Correct.
But I'm able to deal with that because I'm making a good faith effort to try to talk things through to get to a solution. Because at the end of the day, it's not you versus them.
Hmm.
It's you and them versus the problem.
Correct.
Even if you start the problem, you want them on your side to help you solve that problem together.
Of course, of course. And that's the hardest part of what we do as entrepreneurs is, even as individuals, like learning to grow in life. Growth happens not overnight, you know?
Hmm.
Like we say, like quote unquote, Rome wasn't built in a day. So you learning to apologize, you learning to own up to your feelings, it takes a time for you to understand those things.
Oh
And
yeah.
what's happened for me is what I do is, yes, space is important, but sometimes you may have to just write things down. Write your feelings down, journal if that helps you, or make voice notes and then hear yourself back of how you're feeling, and then think of a response. Because, or read a book or see a podcast. Right now we have so many ways to learn how to
Hmm.
apologize. And becoming people pleasers, like we both were grown up like that, we learned that you have to protect yourself, your self care,
Absolutely.
your mind, your body, your soul, because that tension is and that stress isn't worth it. You have to love yourself enough to say, I love that person, or I care about that person enough that I want to now talk to them. So I'm not building ideas in my mind of what can or cannot happen.
Absolutely. And I also want to draw, to what you said about like loving yourself enough, right, in that conversation. Because I want to make sure that your audience is not misunderstanding me, that when you're having this conversation, you're merely opening yourself up to being attacked and you're just laying down and letting them say whatever they want about you, right? You're doing this because you hold yourself in high esteem,
High
right?
esteem.
I'm being responsible. I'm
Yep.
taking care of the pain I cause. I
Hmm.
am going to be accountable. These are
Yes.
all actions of someone who loves themselves enough to know that, I've done wrong and I'm not going to let that slip because I hold myself to that standard. And
Hmm.
that's why you have these apology conversations because there it is, accountability. You
Hmm.
want to be accountable to people, that you have these relationships with that you hurt, but you also want to be accountable to yourself.
Correct.
And if you're in a situation where you got to be accountable to great society, your community, you're
Mhm.
also able to face a greater number of people and be accountable to them as well.
Of course,
Accountability is at the end of the day also a muscle,
it
right? That you
is.
have to keep working on in order to feel comfortable flexing. Because on one hand, when it time to take accountability, it might
Mhm.
suck. But
Yeah.
if people see you in general as an accountable person,
Hmm.
um, it puts you in a league of your own,
Correct.
right? And that's really important to understand about apologies and accountability. You
Hmm.
might feel weak, but by doing it, you are not weak. You're
Correct.
doing something that invokes fear in you. But
Mhm.
bravery is not the absence of fear. Bravery is doing the right thing despite the feelings of fear. And this is what apologies and accountability, these are instances of fear
Hmm.
that, if practiced enough, you
Hmm.
will rise to the occasion each and every time.
Yep. And absolutely, totally believe that. In fact, this is your quote. This is what you told me on our call earlier. Apologies are meant to change the past. They are meant to change the future. So, can you explain that to me?
Yeah. I think you misquoted there. Apologies aren't meant to change the
All right,
past.
sorry, I
They're
meant
meant to change the future.
aren't.
And
Okay, I said it
yeah,
wrong, guys. I said it wrong, but he's
yeah,
gonna
aren't.
correct me here. See,
Yeah, because the context matters. And shout out to Kevin Hancock, who is the author of that quote.
there you go. Is that correct? Apologies aren't meant to change the past. They
They
are
are
meant
meant to
to change
change
the future.
the
Okay.
future. Yes, because too often when people think about apologies, they're thinking about what happened in the past, what did I do? They're thinking about the relationship and the context of the past. Like, I wish we can get back to that. I
Mhm.
wish we get back to when I hadn't made that, harmful conduct towards that person and
Mhm.
we were relatively more peaceful. But
Correct.
the thing is, apologies don't bring you back to the past, they bring you forward. They bring you forward with context,
Mhm.
within the context of like, this has happened,
Mhm.
and the apology is going to help shape
Mhm.
the relationship going forward. So
Right.
if you apologize well, you earn forgiveness,
Mhm.
you become accountable, you take
Correct.
accountability, then the
Mhm.
apology is a positive vehicle moving forward. But if you're going to not apologize, or you apologize poorly, you
Mhm.
don't show enough care when you're apologizing, then it also informs how the relationship is going to be
Yep.
in the future. So when you're apologizing, you're not thinking about, you need to tweak your thinking. You're
Mhm.
not thinking about, I want to take us back to how things were. It's
Yes.
like, no, you apologize because I want to bring us forward to something better,
Exactly.
stronger than what hurt us in this moment.
Exactly. And then it avoids that pain of holding a grudge or assuming things that aren't. Because if you can clear
Mhm.
the air, and then you clear your mind of all the worry and all the stress of, because you didn't negotiate, because you didn't, you have to be able to be in your feelings sometimes, but also work through that. Because if you're not
Mhm.
working through that moment and you're just letting it slide, 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 eventually it's going to be like a Coke bottle. The Coke's there and it's shaken up, shaken up, shaken up, shaken up. And then boom, it
Mhm.
blasts, right? Because you can't shake the bottle that much before it's going to explode, right? It's just like that
Yeah.
with a human being. You're a human being. You're accountable to your own feelings.
Exactly. We in our relationships, even though we don't like to think about it this way, we do only have a certain amount of tolerance,
Hmm.
for someone else, especially the way they harm us.
Yeah.
So I subdivide, harmful conduct into two categories. All right. You
Hmm.
got aggregate harm, which is, the shaking of the Coke bottle, right? You just keep doing things to them, doing things to them, doing things to them. And if you don't clear the air, you don't clear your karma as things come up,
Hmm.
there will be a time when there is something that will break the camel's back,
Correct.
right? It, in the moment, it might seem like, wow, that's what's causing you to blow up at me and end this relationship, but
Hmm.
it's because it's death by a thousand cuts.
Hmm.
The other type of harm is catastrophic harm, where you do something so terrible to someone
Hmm.
that the relationship is at risk right then and there. And I'm sure you could think of many different, like
Those are
actions that
exactly.
would make you, yeah, that would make you go like, okay, I don't like this person no more,
Hmm.
right?
And
So,
sometimes when things happen in these scenarios, it doesn't mean it's the end. It just means that
mhm,
sometimes you let space come, or sometimes they need to reflect, or we need to reflect, whoever needs to reflect. And then maybe later it might improve the relationship because you actually did the communication, you did apologize, you did negotiate, you did sit in their feelings, you put yourself in their shoes, and now you have the tools to say, okay, we went through that once, so now we're going to do the things different this time so that we don't have those type of feelings again.
Exactly. When you apologize, sufficiently, it should be a learning process, and you should come out a better person than when you came in.
Exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
So my last tip of the day is, what inspires you daily?
Oh man, what inspires me? I think what inspires me daily is the people in my life. Whether I've known someone for a very long time, whether I've met someone for a very short period of time, whether it's just someone I'm sitting in sauna with, chatting with in the gym, right? Uh, the chance to interact and bond with someone, it's special, right? We are we are the kindness and the positivity that we put out into the universe, right? So I think being able to get out there and effectuate, positivity in another person, and then they in turn, hopefully are able to reflect it back at us.
Of course.
It's a wonderful feeling. It makes me feel accomplished every single day. So it's definitely the people, everyone from my close friends to just the cashier at the grocery store.
Hmm. Like for me, when people ask me like, "How are you doing?" I just say, "Oh, good, fine, well," one word, right? So recently, I started this new thing where when I'm at the grocery store or the gym and someone random asks me how I'm doing, I kind of take my own. I've had someone say this to me, and then I started to use it, and I say, "I'm blessed and highly favored." Why? Because it's like an I am statement. I am beautiful. I
Hmm.
am strong. So when you say I'm blessed, you're already saying the positive, and
Yeah.
highly favored is a little but I say it because I believe it then. Because it means
Hmm.
that I'm favored, like I'm loved, I'm wanted, I'm cared for. Sometimes you have to say those things to yourself. Maybe write it on the wall, a notebook, and just have that one statement that you're working on. Like I'm working on becoming healthier. I'm working on my self care, right? You have to have those I am statements because eventually those manifest into great things because you start
Absolutely.
to believe it. What you believe, you can achieve. They say that. So, anyhow, if anyone wants more information on John, you can find him at the Negotiated Apology. And John, your website is,
www.thenegotiatedapology.com.
and email.
Yep, Jonathan at the same website.
Awesome, awesome. Well, if you guys want to see the replay, you can follow oneself at Oneself Consulting. And more information on my company is here, and you visit www.oneselfconsulting.com. Thank you so much for being on this Inspiring Innovators. Do something today that your future self is going to thank you for. And John, what do you want to tell our audience before we leave?
Yeah, no, and first of all, thank you for, creating this space for me to come and like, share this. I'm very, very passionate about what I do. I'm very passionate about giving people the power to talk when the discussion is not necessarily the easiest discussion in the world.
Of course.
I just want to, I want to leave your audience. Um, here's my parting thoughts for your audience.
Hmm.
Like you said, whether you believe you can or you can't, that
Hmm.
is true.
Hmm.
And I would say the first person who should believe in you is yourself. No matter what it is that you set out to do today,
Right.
whether it's you need to go to the gym or you want to close that contract, you've
Hmm.
got to believe that you can do it.
Hmm.
And once you have the goal in mind, your brain will build the necessary steps to
Hmm.
get there.
Absolutely, 100%. I completely agree. So, thank you guys. And also, you have an event coming up because, yeah, you want to talk to them really quick before you get off?
Yeah, sure. I host seminars. This is how I teach people how to apologize, and how to use my methodology.
Hmm.
I have one coming up this Saturday, April 19th. You could find tickets on my Instagram page. And in the next couple of months, I am going to expand out from just Phoenix. So I am officially going to do my first workshop in Tucson in
Cool.
June, and
Awesome.
then hopefully I'll be doing ones in my hometown of Seattle,
Oh,
and the location of my alma mater, Portland, soon as
wow.
well.
That's so
So
cool.
it's an exciting year for the Negotiate Apology project.
I can't wait to hear more amazing things coming from you. And I can't wait to have you also in Yuma. When you're ready to come this direction, feel free. I would love to host you and make this known to our community as well. And thank you very much. If you guys don't forget to connect with him on social media. This has been Inspiring Innovators. Have a good night, guys. Bye.